In today's clip, we talk about a booming subnet on the Bittensor ecosystem, Subnet 62, aka Ridge's AI. They build software agents designed to replace or supercharge human coders, tapping into a $400 billion a year software engineering market. Their two-phase go-to-market approach focuses first on stability, then scale, with a winner-take-all minor emissions model that rewards the best performing agents. By staying open source, Ridges creates an ecosystem that's both competitive and collaborative, pushing rapid iteration and innovation. Compared to centralized competitors, the cost to run is dramatically lower, making adoption far more efficient. Ridges AI is positioned to reshape the future of software development. Check the link in the description below to learn more. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, Shaquille, Subnet owner of 62, Ridges AI. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you? Good to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to get you on. And you guys have had quite the rise in the past month. How you feeling?
I mean, good. Yeah, it's been an intense few weeks. Kind of like we rebuilt the whole team. Just been it's been like 6 days a week, 7 hour 12-hour days. But yeah, it's been good. I'm feeling good. Like we made like a lot of progress. It feels cool to like ship. I'm surprised people noticed it this quickly, but other than that, yeah, it feels cool.
Yeah. And Ridges, you were part of AgentsHow. AgentsHow is now Ridges AI.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to speak on the transition of what happened there, but what is Ridges AI? How did it come to be? How are
Sure.
you running it?
So I mean, like I started basically Agent Tag with two other guys, and we were just kind of like all friends. This was like pre-detail, and we were working on it for a bit, but we kind of got it off the ground very close to detail. And as detail happened, just kind of as we were getting our bearings with the older system, detail happened, and we all just kind of like lost. We're like, okay, well, our incentive mechanism doesn't work. We're very far away from generating revenue, and then so basically, like the other guys were like just kind of like we don't want to work on this, myself included, for a bit. So we just kind of let the project die for a little bit. We didn't work on it, but I like the idea. Like I thought it had legs, and so I was like, you know what, I want to work on this. Let me buy you guys out, and so they were fine with it. So we just did like a buyout. Obviously, like we're all still on good terms. Like one of the guys is actually still my roommate. But yeah, it was just kind of like a transition like that. And then I was like, well, I'm gonna run like a real company now. So it was just myself. Kind of hired like a team around me, just all Waterloo interns, and yeah, just kind of built it from there.
So you guys have been moving fast. You think all you need is to ship. That's how you build credibility with the community is just ship, 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 speed, iteration. What have been the hardest parts on onboarding these interns and building the whole new code base that you guys now have and just released yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, like the most difficult part is kind of just getting into this mindset of incentives. Like everyone just like kind of has to really think about how is someone going to break my code, especially because the code is public. And like we see that, like for example, like we just rolled out the code base. Like I think it was probably been out in production probably now for about half a day, and we're seeing people trying to do exploits already, adding stuff to like the responses that their AI agents are giving. But I mean, kudos to them. They picked it up really quickly. Like we rewrote the code base, the core of it in like 3 days. And then from there, it's just been like bug fixing, just like a lot of commits and stuff like that, seeing what breaks, working with deployment. They picked it up pretty fast. I think the hardest thing was just like, yeah, thinking about it in terms of incentives, all the players, the validators, the miners, why they do what they do, and like how we can kind of structure it that like, we align their incentives such that they want to build a good agent. It's very different than thinking about it like if you were just building an agent yourself.
And then high level, what is that incentive design you have between miners, validators? How are miners rewarded?
Yeah.
First, what do they do?
So right now it was like it's basically just like a query response model where the validator sends them a coding problem and they respond with like a response called a get diff, which is basically just like a format of some code where you can apply it to a code base easily. Like a computer can automatically apply it to the code base and like run the new changes. But we're actually moving to like a whole new incentive mechanism. So our plan was kind of like first like rewrite this code base and get it like super stable, like in a much like I think it's like probably like 1/5 of the size of the old code base, much cleaner code, so we can actually move fast within it. And now we've reached that. So now the next step is like our new incentive mechanism, where instead of the validator asking a miner for a response, the miners are actually going to like post all of their agent code publicly. I could talk a bit more about that if you want, but basically what that means is that like anyone can see the miner agent code and anyone can run it by themselves if they want. And so if the agents are coming up with really good stuff, it kind of like solves the problem of having to like worry about privacy. Like where like you don't have to just send your code, your proprietary code to like a bunch of miners you don't trust. If you want, you can actually run the code yourself and use the agents on your own. But yeah, that's kind of the incentive right now, where we're moving from basically this model of the validator asks the miner a question, the miner sends back some code, and then the validator evaluates it on a bunch of different criteria, and then like basically ranks the miners and gives most of the rewards to the top few miners, to like a new one where like the miners upload all their code to like a public registry, and then the validators can then run that code themselves and evaluate it for themselves. There's also like another big difference in that like we're splitting it up. So before it was like there's like one type of problem, which is just like the validator generates some very broad problem, and the miner agent has to be able to solve any kind of problem like this. Let me know if I'm kind of like rambling on too much. But like we're kind of moving to like a different model where like we want the miners to focus on a very narrow part of software engineering. The reason for this is that like I think like software, like the writing is on the walls. LLMs are very clearly good enough to write code, but software engineering and how you actually get there is not just about writing the code. There's like a lot of like small steps that software engineers have to do. It's about like kind of like thinking about the problem, figuring out what to do, kind of looking around. Usually you'll be wrong, so you have to like backtrack. It's very like iterative. Like you have to do like a little step. You'll edit some code, you'll see what happens. You'll edit some more code based on that. It's almost like a very feedback loop kind of thing. It's hard to build an autonomous software agent end to end that can do all of the little things in a row reliably. Like it's like a common thing where like let's say you have like a 90% chance that your model gets it right, but now you're doing like 100 steps. By the end, the odds that your model actually got it right end to end is almost zero. But so what we want to do is we want to basically split each step up and get the miners to like specialize in one kind of step. So either like writing the code, or for example, like finding where in the code base they should edit, and getting really, really good at that. So kind of improve the probability from 90% to like 100% in that one step. And then we basically create like a handoff layer where like when someone gives us a problem, we can split it up into all these steps and allow the agents to just focus on their one step and hand it to the next agent to do really well. Which I think Bittensor is like in a really good position to do because of like you can set up like an incentive where like you're evaluating on a very narrow criteria and giving emissions for that.
And how do these miners know which step to solve for? Do you just give them a whole code base and then they just pick one thing, or do you tell them a specific thing you want fixed or changed? How does that work?
So we'll specify like a bunch of separate incentive mechanisms within our broader incentive mechanisms, almost like a subnet, where we'll give them like they can basically choose what kind of agent they want to build, and then validators will generate problems specifically focused on that one type of agent. So for example, one of them is like context solution. So we'll basically define the agent type, and a miner can register an agent as a type of agent and then get problems for that problem type and just solve that problem type by itself. And the second is that like I am basically like a software engineer trader. I don't trade by hand. I write code to trade. It's like a very small time quant. And the writing is very much on the wall for my career, especially for what I do, which is like smaller niche strategies. And so it's like, okay, either I could try to milk this for a couple years and get replaced, or I can be the one that tries to do the replacing. And I would rather take a swing at doing the replacing than just be like kind of trying to eke out as much money as I can before I get replaced.
And you also had experience with other open source projects, specifically Supabase. What has your time there been like, and how does that influence your approach now?
I mean, I wasn't there for terribly long. I was there for like a couple months as an intern when they first started. I think I was like number 9 or 12 over there. I learned a lot from them. Like, I mean, they operate very, very well. I think they're like $1 billion company now. Internally, they did this thing like YC, where like they had like little sprints for a couple of months, and then like for a couple of months, the whole company would be sprinting towards something. Maybe they don't do it now for like a much bigger company, but yeah, I just learned a lot about like how like speed is very, very important, and in a very saturated market for them, for example, like that was the competitive advantage that set them apart. Like they basically came into a market where Firebase, owned by Google, dominated it, and the only reason they won is because they just did it better, faster. They built like a better developer experience, much quicker. They responded to feedback quicker. They made mistakes, but they improved them quicker, and they kind of like just iterated faster and like in a saturated market. Similar, I guess, to like what's going on now, where it's like everyone's trying to build agents, and the tooling available to everyone, unless you're like a big company like OpenAI, is the same. So it's just like who executes the best.
And you're saying the only competitive advantage is who can execute the best. Why do you think you can execute the best? Why are you best suited? Why is your team best suited for this task?
Yeah, I mean, there are competitive advantages aside of that. If you're like a OpenAI, you obviously have an advantage aside just like who's the best execution. I think that like it's not necessarily the case that I'm the best at executing this, anything inherent to me. But I think that like in my career so far, of the things that I've done, my experience has shown that if I try like hell to do something, probably I can get it done. And I think this is a big enough payoff that it's worth kind of like risking some savings to basically give it a shot and see how far it can go.
Competitors in this space, would you say there's anyone in the traditional world that you see as a competitor here?
There's definitely a lot of smaller companies that are quiet and not talking about it. They're trying to build like an end-to-end solution internally. before going public. Devin is a good example. And I won't say that they faked their demo, but there was rumors that they faked their demo or like YouTube videos about it. And I think that's like it's kind of really hard to build that end-to-end thing. There are parts the agent will get wrong in between, but certainly there's tons. I can't imagine that Cursor, Windsurf wouldn't eventually also try to expand and build like an async agent.
We've covered a lot of ground here. Yeah. What are your thoughts on detail in general? Or are you just so locked in on the subnet game that you don't even look?
I mean, it's tricky. So my main thought on it is that like I think, and maybe I'm wrong about this, I feel like you need to generate revenue sooner than later. You cannot live off emissions because now everyone's incentives are flipped against it. If I as a subnet owner want to be dumping my emissions to fund my team, that pushes my price down, which pushes my emissions down, which pushes the miner quality down. And before that was kind of true where like everyone sold tau. And so the tau like value kind of went down, which kind of attracted maybe less miners in theory. But now it's like directly like your project gets screwed if you're kind of like pushing it down. Beyond that, I don't have any thoughts about it. I think the core of like kind of setting up the incentive mechanisms